Assalamu alaikum. We are live now. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وأتباعه أجمعين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So we are reading from the 21st flash on the second obstacle of destroying sincerity, page 221. Yes, if our way had been subjection to a shaykh, there would have been a single rank or limited ranks. If our way had been subjection to a shaykh, there would have been a single rank or limited ranks, and numerous capacities would have been appointed to them. There could have been envy and but our way is brotherhood. Among brothers, there is no position of father among them, nor can they assume the position of spiritual guide. In brotherhood, ranks are broad and cannot be the cause of envious jostling. At the most, brother helps and supports brother. He completes his service. At the most, brother helps and supports brother. He completes his service. And many mistakes have resulted from the envy, greed for spiritual reward, and high sides are the conflict and rivalry among those who follow them, despite their vast attainments, perfections, and benefits, which have had the disastrous consequence of their vast and sacred power being unable to withstand the gales of innovation. Evidence that much harm and many mistakes have resulted from the envy, greed for spiritual reward, and high aspirations of the paths of spiritual guides are the conflict and rivalry among those who follow them, despite their vast attainments, perfections, and benefits, which have had the disastrous consequence of their vast and sacred power being unable to withstand the gales of innovation. The third obstacle. This is fear and greed. This obstacle has been explained comprehensively in the 6 attacks, which is part of the 6th section of the 29th letter, together with other obstacles. We therefore refer you to that. And making all the most beautiful names of the most merciful of the merciful our intercessor, we beseech that he will grant us success in attaining complete sincerity. We beseech that he will grant us success in attaining complete sincerity. O God, for the sake of Surah Ikhlas, place us among your servants who attain sincerity. Amen, amen. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. Quran chapter 2, verse 32. I think I will stop there, since that's the end of the second obstacle, destroying sincerity, and the next section is a letter about slightly different subject. Um, so, what I took um, uh, away from this is that he is m- making the distinction between, let's say, following a sheikh or some sort of order and brotherhood. And whereas in subjection to a sheikh, as he says, there are ranks. Um, and when you have ranks, that can breed rivalry and envy and selfishness. Whereas brotherhood, all are equal. You know, they're on the same sort of rank, and there's really no envy or jostling, as he says, amongst individuals, um, which preserves sincerity. And so, as he says, brother helps brother, completes his service. And I'm guessing, speaking from his own personal experience, or that when there isn't brotherhood, but there is a sort of hierarchy or rank, then even if, regardless of the spiritual attainments of those guides or those shuyukh in that order, they're still riddled by conflict and rivalry, despite what an individual has achieved. And the most notable consequence, or what becomes obvious, is when somebody is in a rank or order. I think it's sort of intuitively obvious, and is that the head attains vast power to the point that it can introduce innovation and really take people away from what the purpose of that order was for spiritual benefit, but then it rather leads to innovation. So not having that preserves sincerity instead. And then in the third obstacle to sincerity, fear and greed, and he says that's referenced elsewhere in the letters, specifically the 29th letter, 6th section of the 29th letter. So it was a short section. Does anyone have any of their own thoughts on this? Go ahead, I think, Faria.
Assalamualaikum, Asim here. Thank you, Sohail. So the second obstacle for destroying sincerity, from the last week's discussion, we discussed a bit about the example of the ice cube and the fresh water, or the block of ice, and as a human being, letting go of his kind of selfishness or his egoism and melting it away for the sake of, preferring the soul of the brother, because it signifies, the working towards the truth, towards the service of the Quran. And the true brotherhood was we spoke about that somewhat, to what brotherhood actually means. And as you were explaining about the ranking and certain institutions, I know, like, for example, in the churches, they have that ranking, and certain maybe orders may have it. certain organizations have it. Worldly, of course, every corporation and every kind of industry has rankings in order to, so that things kind of work properly, where they assign particular duties and specialties are given to each section, department, and there's somebody who supervises it and makes sure everything comes to build a product. And of course, I mean, that is not our topic in terms of how the corporations organize this, but here in this, towards the service of the Quran, for example, as being students of the Quran, the ranking and capacities kind of, as the author is suggesting, gives rise to maybe, that envy and selfishness. So, which is why I think that envy and selfishness kind of destroys that brotherhood. And it's interesting how he says among brothers there is no position of father, because the position of father, I'm assuming, signifies our ranking, right? So that's what I think the author means. And with that ranking comes the envy and greed, and hey, let me be in charge, let me be in control. That kind of attitude, which gives rise to that jostling, as he says, envious jostling. But the part I was not really clear on was what kind of the last sentence was. What is that? To withstand the winds of or gales of innovation. I mean, is that the part of the ranking, envious ranking, that what kind of innovations is he talking about? Maybe somebody has an idea.
Yeah, I think maybe when people are arguing, no, this has got to be this way, or this means that, like going on about presenting their own interpretation of something. So perhaps that could be it, but let's see what others have to say. And yeah, and then I have a question after that, so I'll just stop.
To me, one of the possibly most immediate innovation is that when one has power, it doesn't become about, let's say, ascertaining and following the truth, or practically, let's say, following prophetic practices, but about following me, because I'm the one who has power, or I'm the one that's in charge. That to me is the most obvious innovation that can happen, is that the people below that shaykh follows the shaykh because the shaykh said so. And the shaykh does this and that, so we must do that. So who is one really following, in that regard? And to me, that's an innovation. Whereas in brotherhood, in a sense, everybody is a spiritual guide, I guess, in that position. So no one person has power over the other. And in that regard, innovation becomes practically impossible. It's being in that environment is self-correcting. So that's kind of what I thought about when he was referring to that. Anybody have any thoughts? Ali, remember, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with Feriha and also with you to a certain extent. Innovation, let's go back to the background of the suggestion here. Our path is not shaykh and murid relationship. It means, as far as the subject is concerned, this the second obstacle and the continuation, the last part we are studying here, the murid, the followers, disciples, compete with each other in order to replace the position of shaykh. So he's going to be the shaykh, because there is a limited, maybe one position, but all the murids are candidates for it. So some of them may really strive to get the position, shaykh position. It is possible that they may rival. That's what I understood. But the author says, our way is not shaykh and murid. We are all brothers. I am a student. Nursi very frequently says in his letters to the people around him, I am a student of the risale-i, and we are all students of the Quran. We are all students. We are learning. I am learning. I just share what I learned, and you will share what you learned. But what is the position that we have to take is, rather than competing and jostling between ourselves and who's going to be replace Nursi, for example, or the author of the book himself is the, of course, leading figure, practically speaking, but he never claimed to be the position of a sheikh or leader or anything. Just, I am a student, you are a student. If I learn something, I will share it with you. If you learn something, share it with me. Brotherhood. In this case, if there should be no room for competition, then there should be no really personal attempt. That's why I say, yeah, Ferry has started the subjection. From there, you continue to say, I agree with you. That's why we are not going to try to put ourselves in the best way so that we will lose the purpose to follow what we understood from the Quran, to follow what we understand from the exemplary life of the Prophet. It means submitting myself to the Prophet's exemplary life. I would try to find out my own way. You said it, my own way, in order to overcome my rival, so that I will be in a better position, and after this sheikh dies or ceases to be a sheikh, I would replace him. I will be the best candidate. It means my personal idea starts taking over the place of the prophetic exemplary life, or following the Quran. Together, actually, following the Quran and following the prophetic exemplary life is the same, because Quran keeps repeating that, follow the Prophet if you want to follow me. Because in the practical life, in physical life, how can I follow God? He is absolute. Anyway, I cannot follow it. So there is only one way to follow what God asks me to do, by following the exemplary life of the Prophet within the conditions of my life conditions, so that I can follow. I should be able to follow what God wants me to follow, because God prepared the Prophet, educated the Prophet, trained the Prophet in order to be an human example in front of, it means the teacher or headmaster of the education system of the universe for human beings. So he is the headmaster. Everybody will learn from him. So rather than submitting myself to the prophet, what I would do, if there is a rivalry, I will start inventing my way in order to take an higher position, in order to show off myself at the higher position, so that I will be the candidate for the post or for the position of the shaykhhood, whatever it is. That's what innovation is very important, because innovation means, everybody knows that, substituting your own idea, your own interpretation, without following the exemplary prophetic exemplary life. So why do we fall in this position? Because maybe we may be following our egoistic desires. That's why we pave the way, the path to innovation. Or I want to be on a superior position, so I have to invent some means to gain this position. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Does anybody else have any comments about this section? Go ahead, Farah.
Assalamu alaikum. I was wondering whether this mention by the author is like a categorical rejection or critique of any system where there is a designated position, such as that of a sheikh and followers, or if we understand this to be a likely sort of pitfall or a danger, or something that is likely to happen, because obviously there can be many there are many different structures of sheikh and murid relationships in history and even now, where people from who are part of these things may not feel or describe their experience to be as such. So I just was wanting to understand from everybody who's here, do you understand this as a, like all teacher, sheikh murid relationship or structures are, susceptible to this, or the fact that, it is more likely to happen?
It's a good question. I mean, to me, two things. I kind of, I mean, this is my experience, but and don't know about the entirety of the world, but at least in the Western world, I'm not really sure how prevalent this is, to be honest. I guess given the circumstances and time we live in, but I don't necessarily think he's saying it's by default bad, but there are weaknesses to it in that these things could happen and they have happened, and it's possible, and therefore it's possible they can happen. And therefore a better way is what he's advocating for. It's in a sense, I guess, less risky or less dangerous, shorter And yeah, I mean, the risk isn't there compared to what he's comparing it to. I'm not saying he's like throwing it out, but I think what he's saying is that there's a better way. Oliver, go ahead.
That's a good question. I wanted to talk about it as well because it needs to be brought into daylight, actually. Practically speaking, in our worldly affairs, almost there is no company, there is no institution with the hierarchy. I think as an institution related to this causal world relationship, then, for example, can you imagine a company, everybody is equal? If it was true, the Karl Marx communist community would be realized in the world. It was never realized. Russia tried to do it, and it was impossible because the Red Army took over the administration and they were the leaders. So it was impossible. So economically also it wasn't impossible. The Karl Marx it's an ideal situation in the worldly affairs. Karl Marx went, everybody should be equal. They have to contribute as much as they can to the community, and they should take as much as they need. But of course, he didn't recognize that the need of human beings has no end. So human is created greedy. So as far as this world is concerned, so it never happened. So that hierarchy needed. That's why, practically speaking, this ideal community, communion life, which is called communism, didn't work at all. It wasn't realized at all in history. It doesn't work. That is one thing. But what we are talking about here is, the main subject is sincerity. Sincerity for what? Working and doing something only for the sake of the absolute being, to reach him. Of course, it's not impossible to reach him, but to be on the path. Try to get closer to him. It is infinite. The path between me and my worship, my object of worship, is infinite. So what is important now? On an infinite line, wherever you are, you cannot really make a mark on your position because there's no beginning, there's no end. So what is important? As the Quran stresses, fi sabilillah. It means Surat al-Mustaqim. It means put me in the road, in the path, which is aiming at trying to understand the God, the Creator, as much as possible, his not nature, his essence, but his qualities, observe it and assimilate it, identify it with your criterion, which is spirit, so, and submit to it. After submitting, turn it into worship. This is what we are expected to do. But on the way, no one knows who is closer to the end. Why? Someone can answer me? Why do you think no one knows? I am ahead of you. You are ahead of me. Come on.
That would make people jealous and rivalry, and then also personally would flatter the ego and make people insincere.
No one can, my expectation was different. What you said is correct. It's right. No one can claim that I am closer to the infinite, the end of infinite. There is no end. There is no end. That is ikhlas. The sincerity is so important. I cannot say, if there was a point at the end, I can measure it. I am ahead of you, I am behind you. But there is no ending point. This is very important. If we understand that, to seek God, understand God, worship God, is something, it is a position that it puts me in a way that I cannot claim any superiority or inferiority to another person's position, because there is no point of reference. We are on the path. The path has no beginning. The path has no end. It means we are all trying to understand and get closer in understanding the absolute being and attributing our existence, attributing our feelings to him in order to make my own existence more meaningful. So how can I say that I'm better than you? I am ahead of you on the path. This is a very interesting phrase that the Quran keeps saying, that who are on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, who are working on the path of God, it means Sabilillah, on the way to God. It means, very interesting, the important thing is for us, for me, to be on the path, not to get closer to the end. There is no end. There is no end. That is very interesting to me. MashaAllah. Very interesting. So I cannot claim I'm better than you. But if I, as Suhail said now, if I put my ego in the equation, it becomes a point of reference. When it becomes a point of reference, I can measure myself with you, because I am the point of measurement. You are better than me, you are worse than me, I am better than you. So there will be a room for conflict. But if I realize that I am in a path which has no end, I cannot say who is closer, who is behind. Everybody has his own lane, if you like, all human beings, and you can see your own lane. You cannot compare with other people's lane. Physically speaking, or thinking, it is impossible, because if we are talking about a subject in terms of infinite, we cannot make comparisons in terms of infinite. For example, can I say number 50 is closer to the infinite than number 10? That's what I meant. That is a very interesting concept that we have to understand. Who is closer to God's pleasure, if you like, although I don't like this word as it is used in English, but it is rida. So who is closer to the position of rida? Rida Allah. But rida Allah is infinite. I cannot say. So as far as the infinite is concerned, we cannot make an limited place for infinite. A set. Can you make a set about infinite? For example, you can say there are 5 numbers. These 5 numbers make a set. Yeah, in mathematics. But we cannot make a set. So within the set, 5, 50, 1000 are within, as far as the infinite is concerned, are the same. So only that's what God says, you don't know, but I know. What does it mean? Who has the notion or knowledge of God, ma'rifatullah, knowledge of me, only I know it. I am infinite. You are not. So you cannot say that who is closer to me. It is very interesting. We have to realize that if we are working, striving, in order to get to know the absolute creator, if our aim is this, I cannot compare myself with anyone. I cannot claim any better position than another being. It is extremely important. That's why in any institution, we have to make the distinction. That's categorically speaking, I agree with Farah. If she didn't say it is thus, but he put it in the form of a question. But it was the question that it's a good question. For example, there is an institution where Quran is studied, right? The institution can measure the amount of knowledge. An institution must have a hierarchy. Head of the institution or CEO of the institution and administrators or principals of the branches of the institution, this branch, this branch, this branch, grammar branch, let's say, for example, lugha, how do you say, dictionary or meaning, word meaning, branch is different. I don't know, recitation branch is different, memorization branch is different. Every branch may have a head. Hierarchy is inescapable, necessary. So this needs administration, but among the students in all categories, in all branches, who is more sincere? Can you put a head for it to decide who is going to get the higher grade? That is what we have to understand. We are studying sincerity as far as the sincerity side of our actions, our endeavors, strivings is concerned. We cannot claim anything. That's why it is inevitable not to have a position. That's why not only in Sufi tradition, shaykh and murid, a relationship, disciple relationship. No, not only that, any kind of institution which is dealing with sincerity, it means in the eye of God, who is better? No one on earth can judge that this is better than the other. That's why in Islamic tradition, the prophetic example never allows us to label, brand somebody with hypocrisy. Why? You don't know the heart of the person. Only God knows. How can you claim that his relationship with God, his relationship with God is in, what's the word? Hypocrisy, or not genuine, whatever you call it, false. No, we can say that. Let's say fake. Yes, thank you, Hamid. It is fake. Nobody can say that. You don't know what was the reason for a person who said this, did this. But as far as, now the Farah will actually start a very important point. I'm speaking a lot, I'm sorry, but it needs some sort of explanation as far as I know. I want to share it with you. So For example, as far as the court is concerned, court does not judge, qadi, does not judge according to sincerity of the people. He is not allowed at all to judge according to sincerity of the person. This is a very pious man, so I have to trust him. No, 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 no. In Islam, in the secular legal system, again the same, you only judge on the basis of evidence, period. Evidence, it means material appearance according to the requirements of the law. That's it. This law says if someone has done this, and if the judge finds the evidence for it, this person is guilty according to requirements of the law. But in reality, whether this man was sincere, really in his heart he had something else, we don't know the evidence of what the heart has at all. That's why Quran keeps reminding us that last day of judgment, everything will become clear. God will judge according to his absolute knowledge. These are important in our relationship. For example, let's say among us, one of us doesn't speak at all, okay? For example, and we say, well, of course, because he doesn't know, that's why he doesn't speak. You don't know, because you don't know. I speak a lot, I admit. It doesn't mean that I am more sincere than you are. Or let's say somebody has more knowledge than me or you, okay? Do you mean that having more knowledge is equal to having a higher position in the eye of God? Not at all. There are many people out there who have thousands of times more knowledge than I have, but I don't know their sincerity. It means in their path to the infinite absolute God, where they are. I don't know, because there is no, again, this is very important. I have any human being, and none of the human being has, about this path going to infinity, relationship with God, his relationship with God, there is no point of reference so that I can measure with. Impossible. I think that is a very important point for me to keep in mind, saying that this person, let's say, says also always nonsense things. It means he has no knowledge, real knowledge, so he has no status in the eye of God. Total garbage. I don't know. That makes human beings, and in my personal life, that makes me feel not to pass any judgment about any person unless it is something to do with physical terms. Physical terms means if I say, for example, how much money do you have in your purse? You say 100. Oh man, no, you are better than I am. As far as having the money in your purse is or wallet is concerned, because I have 20 only. Yeah, you are much ahead of me. Correct. But it doesn't mean that I am closer to God. You are closer to God because you have more, I have less. No, because I have less, it means I am less people of, or the less person of the world because I have less money. It doesn't show anything at all in my relationship with God. These are all false. So, for example, if you have in Christianity, in one of the famous line or branch denomination in Christianity, they say if somebody is given more wealth, this person, it means Allah preferred him and gave him more wealth in order to demonstrate that he has a better position in his eyes. That's why he is blessing him with more wealth. That's where Calvinistic, I think, attitude in Christian tradition. It may have some validity nowadays among Christianity, but also it may have some room in our heart as well. If someone is apparently given more opportunity, we say, you are blessed by God, yeah, but we don't know why. Yeah, Allah gives more and puts you in trouble more. I don't know. Maybe Allah gives you more because he preferred you more. Most of the time we see that the prophets are not giving more. Most of the time. Prophets do not inherit. It means bequeathed, I think the right word, any property to anyone because their value cannot be measured by the property given to them by Allah. Nothing to do with it. So it doesn't mean that, for example, Prophet Muhammad died with very, nothing. So no one could claim that he had bequeathed some money to his descendants. No, nothing. But on the other hand, Solomon was the king of a huge country. Okay. Who is more valuable in the eye of God, Solomon or Muhammad or Jesus? Jesus had nothing at all. No position, nothing. And once upon a time, the Prophet Muhammad was the leader, administrator of a community, and commander-in-chief of the army, something like that. Jesus was nothing. Do you think, as far as this criteria is concerned, Jesus had nothing at all in this world, so he didn't have any higher position, any position in the eye of God? These are all false imagination with no reality. I'm sorry, but I wanted to share my feelings with you. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, that was very informative. And helps better explain this section. I don't know if that answers your question, or if you had any further questions about that. Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to add to this section? Commentary, thoughts, questions? Otherwise, I was thinking about continuing. Go ahead, Farah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ali. I guess then if I were to think about the fact that in our lives, our practical religious lives, however we want to deem them, if there are any sort of agreements within communities, I'm sure, for example, as communities also in retrospect, would agree that let's say the author of this book was in some way revered or gained some rank amongst the people because of his service. And there are many other examples where very clearly who are not prophets, but are individuals, whether dead or living, that hold some sort of reverence amongst people, commonly speaking. So if I were to, based on what I hear you say, if we think about those, positions that people gain in the eyes of the people, it appears from what you have said that it comes out of some action related to practical manners that distinguishes them, and still there's nothing one can say them about whether or not they were of some higher rank in faith or in their sincerity within faith, but rather what people see of their actions in the community based on that, people have earned levels and ranks within the community. But at the same time, people also seem to, it's common to say that, somebody is, let's say, closer to God, or their titles of friend of God, that people have conferred, and they directly, to me, at least sound like they have something to do with someone's sincerity in their faith. So I hope that, and others can also sort of corroborate if this is something, a valid observation from their side also, or not. It would be interesting to hear.
Interesting question. I don't know if anybody has any personal thoughts, or Dr. Ali, if you wanted to answer that, since the question was directed at you. Go ahead.
I missed the beginning of what Farah said. Yeah, it is a very important question. Did you say, if I'm wrong or right, please indicate. Did you say that the Quran says we felt panna? It means we gave a higher position to some people, for example, the children of Israel, and also among the prophets. There are two verses directly related to the subject, which one says we make no difference between the prophets. The other one says we upgraded some, we have given higher position to some than the others to the prophets. Did you say this, or did I misheard you?
It was implied in it, but yes, that's one part, and the other one also being of people who don't have of individuals who are not prophets, but whether living or dead, like we said, the awliya, or this, figures in history and even living, who people do consider to be in some way closer to God, and it is a judgment on their faith when someone does say this.
Excuse me, who said that some people are considered to be higher position than the others?
No, I'm saying it's like, for example.
No. Excuse me. The name you gave, but I couldn't catch it.
Oh, for example, when we refer to saints or
saints. Who's saint? Now, okay, good. But don't be.
Right. So, like in the translation, the typical translation of the way, for example, and these are all sort of, just simple community level understanding. When someone refers to, even for example, I'm sure the author of this book is held in high respect by people who read it by people who know of this author, then people will, there's also a concept of wali, or they'll say waliullah. It's like people who are clearly have a reputation for being respected in terms of their service to deen, or their religion, but it is always implied that somehow they are of a that there is definitely an implied thing that there is some degree in faith, or in their faith, which makes them of a higher rank, or of a respectful rank amongst communities, whether they were writers or I'm trying not to say words that will get me into sort of
I think I understood.
Yes.
Thank you for your help. Now, if I see somebody in a higher position, according to what? According to my view, not according to God's view. Impossible. So we who are close to God, Arabic, yeah, it means closer to God, really. God protects them. God knows them. This is a title not to be given to somebody by anyone at all. So I may regard you as a wali. It means really very close and also friend of God. That is in my eye, not in God's eye. Sincerity is something to do with my relationship with God, not my relationship with you, your relationship with your friends. No, not at all. I may regard somebody, esteem, respect somebody, and give him a higher rank in my eye according to me. Sincerity has nothing to do with my judgment. That is one thing. And also, faddalna, this is very important. Classical scholarship argued about it a lot. Why children of Israel was given a higher status? We have to understand two things. We don't know, we may miss the meaning, content of the concepts used in the Quran. We reduce them, pull them down to our level, and put them, children of Israel, certain people. I never ever understood the children of Israel as certain people. Children of Israel, those people who are following the prophetic line, prophetic teachings. That's why I proudly say that I am one of the children of Israel, inshallah, hopefully, because I try to follow the prophetic exemplary life as taught and educated by Allah. The educated, the prophet is educated. That's why I'm following. In reality, I'm not following the personality, human Muhammad, but his actions according to what he was taught by God, his message according to what he was taught. So I can say the companions, I will use the common language, although it may be disappointing to somebody's understanding of companion and of the Jews, I would say the companions of the prophet were children of Israel, because the prophet followed the prophetic line in human history. He was one of the ring of the chain. But he is the last one. That is another argument. None of my business. But I can argue that he must be the last one. But that's another subject. I can speak about it a lot. It was my one of the interest. What does it mean, Khatemul Anbiya? So I made some sort of studies about it for myself, but this is not the subject. But he is one of the chain. So why the Quran says we gave higher rank to some prophets? Now, I can ask you a question. It says, Farah asked the question. Now, do you think, for example, let's say a professor in physics knows better than Newton's physics, knowledge of physics? Can you guess? You don't know, but can you guess?
He may or he may not.
No. What do you mean?
Because
The professor now studying physics, going into the subatomic world, knows much higher degree of physics than Newton's physics. Even, let's say, in physics department graduate, it means college graduate, may know more than Newton knows about the physics of the world. Now, if you like, 20th century professor of physics has a higher rank in knowledge of physics than Newton. Now, but it doesn't mean that Newton's success was less than this man's success as far as his responsibility is concerned. Newton might have deserved higher position in this world. I'm just making a comparison. Now I'll come to sincerity. Higher position than this man, because let's say Newton so strongly studied to understand how the universe works, so he devoted his life 99%. It looks like it. But the professor maybe knows much more than Newton, but 60% of his life is devoted to understand how the universe works, because he had knowledge in his head. So when the Quran says we make no difference between the prophets, it means fundamentals of the message that we receive to them are the same, no difference. Always La ilaha illallah, always there is akhirah, etc. Always. But how about the explanation of evidences of La ilaha illallah, explanations of the resurrection in the Quran as compared to another, let's say, Bible or Torah, which is somehow accessible to us now. Quran is a higher explanation than Torah has. What makes a prophet is not his personality, his message makes this person as a prophet. If he had not received the message from God, he wouldn't be a prophet. So when we describe somebody as a prophet, we have to understand that he has this position because he was given, he was entrusted the message. That makes him a prophet. So the message, as Newton's physics and 21st century's physics has difference. So according to the capacity of the audience of the message, God provides at that level of evidence of unity of God and necessity of the existence of the hereafter. So according to the capacity of the audience, the message increases. About the content, not the essence of it. Both of them are saying there is a resurrection definitely will take place. Definitely. But evidence is like, that is why we have to understand that. We have to understand the Quran under the evidence that we have available within our hand. So we have to evaluate it. It doesn't mean that an ummi, follower of the Quran, student of the Quran, is or has less value in the eye of God, sincerity-wise. They have, because they are ummi, so they have less value than I am a knowledgeable man. For example, let's say a hadith scholar, is a great hadith scholar, had the opportunity to approach this many hadith narrations, okay? But I have an internet now. I have an access to all hadiths. Does it make me more closer to God? And he is less because he didn't know much. Knowledge is a means, nothing. Knowledge is a means. Haman has the knowledge. Yeah? What does it mean? Nothing. Pharaoh has the power. Qarun has the property. So much. What does it mean? Nothing. Or those, do you think that having less property, less financial facilities makes you better? No. More financial facilities you have makes you better? No, not at all. It has nothing to do with it. It's because we are going to be taken to account for our sincerity, which is known only to God. That's why you will come, Quran says, you all will come in my presence. I will tell you who you were. No one else. That's why the Prophet Muhammad has never narrated to make a judgment about people's sincerity, worship of God at all. Only physical evidence is to be counted. I think we have to understand this. Wali people are higher status in my eye, but Walaya is a status in the eye of God, is a higher status than me. Or my understanding of God, because this status is presented to us in order to follow this path, to become closer to God, to become a friend of God, to become acquainted with God as much as possible. That is my aim. But no one can claim that I am wali. No one can claim that this person is wali. Not at all. These are just false images prevalent among within the minds of people like me. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair for that explanation. Farah, did you have any other further comments or questions or thoughts about?
That was very fascinating, especially the part of ranks based on knowledge that is available to you are necessarily, the rank of the knowledge or the amount of the knowledge is definitely going to be higher for someone, let's say, in this day and age compared to before, but that does not equate to rank in sincerity between one and the creator. Yeah, no, that was very fascinating. I think it was also reminded me of a question I once sort of heard being debated on, and not to take the topic in a different direction, and the moderator can decide. So, but there was a question of like whether people in these generations and the generations that followed, for example, let's say the companions of the Prophet, could know more or become, have some sort of status within religion that could be higher or lower than the companions. And I think that question was confusing to me on how it was being dealt. And so this approach helps me try and understand in what ways can, yes, generations, newer or coming generations can achieve a higher rank in knowledge of evidence of testimony, let's say, to the truth, but we cannot make any such judgment within as regards to their rank in relationship to God or their sincerity. Thank you for that.
Just thank you for the questions. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this? About the second obstacle, or even the third obstacle. I know there really isn't much there because he's referencing another section, but he does talk about fear and greed, about being an obstacle. Go ahead, Ali Murmur.
I think we are done with the 21st flash, and Asim told us last week that we have somehow covered flashes. Let's move to another. My suggestion is this, very simple. We have only 9 minutes left. Can we talk what to follow next Sunday, inshallah?
We can do that. Do you want to end the recording here? Okay, I mean, we can end the recording here and then talk about